Remember dating back when you were 17? Yeah. Well, you're not some clueless teenager anymore. It's time to date like an adult. It's time to date better. Hey, this is Todd. Welcome to the Thrive Singles Podcast. Whether you're single again or still single, stop hating being single and learn to thrive. And welcome to this week's edition of the Thrive Singles Podcast, where every week we learn a little more about how to stop hating being single and how to thrive as a single. Glad you've joined me here. Thank you so much for tuning in. And in keeping with my theme of getting back to basics, this week I want to talk about dating and how to date better. Because how you feel about, define, and go about dating has a huge impact on how much you enjoy single life and how well you thrive as a single person. First off, if you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you know I believe that if you're single, you should probably date. You also know that when I say date, I mean spending quality, non-romantic time on purpose with individuals of the opposite sex. And you know I don't mean getting into some long drawn-out marriage-light dating relationship. But you should date. If you ever want to get married, you should go out with enough people to feel confident around people of the opposite sex, to not feel desperate to have the affections of a certain person, and to determine what you really want in a spouse. And even if you have no desire to get married, I still think it's healthy to hang out with people of the opposite sex from time to time. It's good for the same reasons that it's healthy to have friends of different ethnicities and from different cultures. Interacting with people with different life experiences and points of view other than your own. That helps to expand your thinking and prevents your worldview from becoming too narrow and too insular. So let's start with the basics. What is a date? I covered this a lot more in depth in my blog post at thrivesingles.com titled Dating versus Dating. What is a date? In fact, that's an important post. I'm going to try to record a podcast episode for that one very soon. When I say you should date, I simply mean you should spend quality, fun, non-romantic time with people of the opposite sex in a context where you can get to know each other better. In other words, if you ask a specific person to meet you at a specific place and time for the purpose of enjoying each other's company and getting to know each other, to me, it's a date. And for best results, you should do this often and with a wide variety of people. But here's where most people get it wrong. The point of a date isn't to, quote, win the affections of someone. The point isn't to see how romantic you can be and how far you can get. Going on a date isn't about gratifying your physical urges for sex or affection. The kind of dating I'm talking about is just to have a little fun, enjoy each other's company, learn about yourself and them. And if you're seeking to get married, to see if there's any mutual interest. So if that sounds like fun, who should you date? That depends on what you value. Let me refer you to another post on thrivesingles.com. See my post about are they marriage material? Make a list. Or look for the podcast episode. I recently went back and did a podcast episode for that one. Know what values and character traits you value in a person. Know what passions and beliefs are important to you. Yes, there should be some physical attraction, but keep that in its proper context. Place the most value on what's the most important. Give some thought to these statements and come up with 5 to 10 things. Like for your must-have list. Finish this statement. I could never marry someone who isn't. Fill in the blank with what's important to you. I could never marry someone who isn't respectful, kind, a good cook. Or this statement, I could never marry someone who doesn't. Here again, fill it in with what's important to you. I could never marry someone who doesn't attend church regularly and tithe. I couldn't marry someone who doesn't watch football, dress well, brush their teeth every day, whatever it is that's important to you. 5 to 10 things. And then 5 to 10 things for your deal breakers list. Finish this statement. I could never marry someone who, fill it in with the things that are your deal breakers. I could never marry someone who smokes, uses foul language, hates cats, gets angry easily. Whatever it is that's important to you. And go a little deeper. Get past the shallow things. Find around 10 things for each list that really matter in life and in marriage. I know we're talking about just a date right here, not marriage, but I think similar criteria should apply. So if you start asking people out on, what do you do? I suggest you spend a little time pre-dating, getting to know a little about a person, through interacting with them, just in a casual situation or in a group setting first. That way you can get some feel for if you have any common interests. If there are certain things you both enjoy, then it's easy to come up with a date where you'll both, more likely than not, have fun. I find that activities that involve some light physical activity and give the opportunity for lots of conversation are ideal, like a walk, an easy hike, or a bike ride. Just make sure it's in a safe, well-traveled area where you have plenty of safety of being around other people. Coffee shops, parks, those are great places to meet up. And so are events that are centered around a common interest you have. There are, of course, some things I suggest you not do. And I know this flies in the face of most of what you've been told about dating. But like I said earlier, romance and affection are not the goals of dating. The goal of dating is to find someone with whom you might want to marry and enjoy romance in the future, in the future after you get married. Save all that good stuff, the hand-holding, the kissing, the hugging, and especially the sex, for later down the line. If they're a good match for you, there's going to be plenty of time for that later. And if they turn out to be not a good match for you, you'll be glad you didn't go too far with them. Either way, there's nothing to gain from rushing into a physical relationship. So with that in mind, I'd stay away from overly romantic places, dark, poorly lit corners, and especially I'd stay away from going to your place or their place. Being alone at her place is how I messed up earlier in life. And speaking of earlier in life, you remember back when you were younger? You remember how dating was all about winning them over, romancing them, getting the good night kiss? It was all about holding hands. It was all about getting from first base to second base. It was all about the titillation of going a little further and a little further with each passing date. Yeah, well, you're not 16 anymore. It's time to date better. Time to start dating like an adult. And part of being mature is learning to control your expectations and to control your urges. A lot of you, like me, were married before. What was once a little fun on a date is now more like foreplay. And if you're serious about doing it right this time and remaining pure in the process, you have to do things differently now. You have to draw the lines a little further out where you have lots of margin. If you're going to err on the side of extreme safety and excessive purity. Hopefully I've given you a few things to think over and hopefully act on this week. So till next week, keep dating in its proper context. Make a list. Decide beforehand what you will and will not do. Give yourself lots of margin. Go to thrivesingles.com, check out my other posts about dating, and thrive on. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. See you next week. Till then, be sure to subscribe and go check out my extensive archive of past posts at thrivesingles.com. And thrive on.
Whoa, thrive. Yeah, come alive. There's more to life. You gotta grow, you gotta thrive. Whoa, whoa, you gotta thrive. There's more to life than to just survive. You gotta grow, you gotta thrive.